Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you how to create this kind of effect, something like dripping paint or some kind of thick liquid. Let me start with a little backstory. At first my task was to create a similar effect where paint flows down in a small separate streams, which eventually fill the entire frame. Here is a direct reference, white paint on a black background that completely covers it in the end, but at first it flows down in little patches or streaks. At first I tried to achieve this without simulation using kind of things like deformation on a plane or adding a few meshes dripping moving along the curves. But the result didn't look satisfying. It didn't look like real paint or like a single continuous object. It was a clearly separated. So I decided to use simulation after all, but it is in a simplified way. I will show you using this a simple square surface where a paint or oil or any other liquid depending on the shader will flow down. I have done this for different formats, so this could be any plane, but we first need to define the surface so the liquid will flow along. I divided the surface into these little spikes sticking up a bit, which act as a container that guide the liquid when it flows. The liquid runs into those gaps and splits into the separate drips what we need, flowing irregularly. The larger the surface, the more of these grooves I make. The more drips we want branching off the main stream, the more of these grooves we need. It's also important to prepare the surface correctly for the simulation. Apart from the grooves, the surface should be tilted slightly so the liquid actually flows and sticks to it rather than just falling straight down and breaking apart of the mesh. In my early experiment, that's exactly what happened. Once this base is ready, we also need to make sure it's a double-sided mesh with the proper normals, not flip it inside out, so it can correctly act as a collider for simulation. Then we move into LiquiGen. For those who have never used it, I have already prepared a setup. You can download it from the link in the description. The setup consists of a collider surface, what you see, and a spherical emitter above it that pours the liquid down. When you press the space bar, the emission starts and we can see how the liquid flows. What variables can be here? First, the tab called Mod Escalator is designed to move our object left and right along the sine wave. So it moves left and right, and we must set these boundaries here. That is, if these are the boundaries along x, we must set up the minimum value and the maximum value. If we set there, for example, minus 0.5 and plus 0.5, our emitter will sway almost in place and also create interesting streams, but slightly different ones. Also, you saw the liquid is not always emitted. That's because here I set the keys on the timeline under emit. That is, you can remove them and it will emit constantly during the all frames, which also can be and will create an interesting effect. But when we'll run into the fact what there will be too much, the liquid will stay to be very dense and too many particles will be emitted, and it will be not have time to flow down because it has certain viscosity, and we will have a very slow render and simulation and so on. Therefore, I set the keys so that the first layer flows a little, that it's not so many particles yet, then add a little more and turn it off right away. And the end, we end more, because my task was that the frame should later completely fill. Depending on these intervals, we will also influence the amount of generated liquid, generated particles separately. Also, the size of the emitter itself, its radius, influences the amount of generated liquid. That is, the bigger is it, the more liquid will fall. You can also play with it and vary on your own. In general, if a fully optimized scene, it is preferable to manage the one layer and let it flow. Perhaps such a result will already suit with you. The flow speed can also be slightly adjusted by increasing gravity. That is from -7 to 20, and the liquid already flows noticeably faster. Flows as needed. Also, in the simulation node, we can change the parameter called viscosity, max iteration, and then the liquid will completely turn into water-like and just spill. The higher this parameter, the more the liquid will get stuck and become more like a sour cream, like a thick substance. In LiquiGen, it's cool that you can change it in real time and see how a certain setting affect on your simulation. The settings that I have set, as for me, at the moment are optimal for the task and those visuals that I'm showing you. I also prepared notice here for expert. In this case, Alembic work best, and you have to set up the number of frames here, for example 1000, and choose your directory, what you need of your project, and click export now, and this mesh is already prepared to import in Blender. That is, in this setup, by changing the mesh, changing the number of indentation, changing the width of our collider and the surface along which our liquid flows, changing gravity, changing viscosity and shader, you can achieve very different results. I hope this was useful for you. Come again, subscribe on the channel. Bye everyone!